Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Say Report, the show where your hosts are courteous enough to burp off mic. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me from the great state of Utah, give it up for Elder Sejohn.
Thank you. Oh God, please do not start that. Hey everybody, Sejohn here. Man, yeah, this is gonna be our first our first big recording from out
It's
this
our
way.
first official recording.
Official, that's the word I should have used. Yeah. I mean we threw that little surprise episode out, and I say surprise because it was a surprise even to me that was gonna happen.
Well,
but
I
yeah, this is
lost
my
my
first big official.
mind, and here's the thing. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it because it got your brother, Zach Sarowick of Say Report Jr., to buy the game.
Hey man, if
And
there's one thing that we can do.
That's what a review is supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So go listen to our Messenger review if you haven't played the game yet. It'll probably make you want to.
Yeah, and I am interested to hear other people's voices on this particular one because, you had made some really good points about it. I have not yet picked it up myself, but I am very interested to hear how other people feel about it, given some of the elements that we talked about, and but they can listen to the episode to get more on that. There was a real important reason why you wanted to record that episode, Devin, because you felt that we weren't going to have the ability to talk about the messenger on this week's episode.
And there's a good thing, but I even though I said we weren't going to get a chance to talk about the messenger on this week's recording, I'm sorry to cut out that beautiful build-up that you gave me because it was really good. I want you to know that you did some good work right there, boy.
That's fine. I got on my Segway and I rode it right off a cliff.
The messenger, in the time that we have since we recorded that review about a week ago, right? Let's be honest, has been completely torn apart and broken by speedrunners.
Nice.
The last world record I saw was 1 hour and 56-minute completion of a game that's huge.
Yeah. But we're not talking about like 100% completions, right?
No,
like
it's not 100%. It's an any percent completion, and it's not glitchless. You use a glitch to clip through walls and kind of out of bound, but not like as insane out of bounds as like Link to the Past is.
Okay, nice. All right.
More like just to get past, like, there's a lot of these little things that are barriers when you're in 8-bit mode for when you get to the 16-bit mode, and this just sort of lets you circumvent it. And also, because a lot of those areas you're never supposed to get to in 8-bit mode.
In 8-bit mode, yeah, I was going to say, how are we looking then?
The items still exist there. Like,
That's
you don't
weird.
see them. Like, the big one is in the Searing Crags. There's a way to glitch up to where you get a music note, which is an important item later on in the game. No big spoilers here. And if you're able to get up there in the past, you collect that note. Even though there's nothing on the screen, if you go to where the note is, it gives you the note.
So I was going to ask, are there assets for that stuff in 8-bit mode? Because that would be insane, but clearly not, right? Like
you say that, but then there are also moments where, like, later on, you're not supposed to do the elemental skylands in the past because you don't know the dragon that takes you up there in the past. Like, he probably hasn't even been born yet.
Amazing, by the way.
I can't believe you haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
And you go up there, but you still go from 8-bit to 16-bit once you're on the islands themselves.
Okay.
And there's a way to leave the second island still in 8-bit mode, and it does not have any of the enemies, do not have 8-bit sprites, but they still exist. But, like, it does have fire mechanics and stuff for the dragon in 8-bit mode. So it's one of those things where, like, we fully intended you to be able to get here. Like, we expected that this might happen, and we kind of prepared for it. But, like, good friggin' luck getting through when you can't see the bad guys. And then, even if you do get through, there's a good chance because someone, while they were still in 8-bit, went back to the beginning of that second island, and it does not let you progress into the actual challenges of the island in 8-bit mode. So you essentially soft lock the game by glitching and going out of bounds. So, like, this game has been, and it was really fun. It was my sort of like way to decompress from the big event that I was doing, which is going to be the bulk of this episode. We're not going to do more than 50 more seconds on the messenger. Was watching these two runners, Andy, who I know from the Link to the Past stuff, and the Mexican runner, who like really taught me a lot about Cuphead before they patched out all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
It was watching these two guys basically fight, and they were exchanging world record times. Like it was so cool, like watching it organically happen.
That's awesome.
And having them in each other's chat rooms and learning the little tips and strategies. So that was my way to decompress. Because as Sejohn was setting up for, do you want to try to? I mean, has the segue been brought back up from the canyon floor? Or
No, I mean you are setting one up nicely yourself. You had a big event this weekend.
I had a big event this weekend. And that event is tied to, in April, I found out about FRAG, the Federation of Retro and Arcade Gamers, and they had an event at the VFW Post in Norwich, Connecticut, where it was 12 games, and the top 3 high scorers on arbitrary goals that they set got to complete in the final. And the winner got prizes, and the runner-up got prizes, and there was also, like, a Smash Brothers tournament and a Call of Duty tournament. So, like, it was a pretty cool event. I had a great day doing that, but because I ended up getting second overall in that tournament, I won a ticket to attend Retro World Expo in Hartford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And Retro World Expo is, I mean, it's an emergent convention. It was only its 4th year, but it was awesome. Like, cool. This is the time that I like to go to conventions. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to PAX East in Boston, Sejohn.
I have, and it's hard to avoid it, to be entirely honest. I mean, during PAX East, you can't get on the T without seeing 20 people in costume.
Yeah, there's 20 links, and you're like, this is the link to the past. Oh, who just let out a Breath of the Wild? Oh, nice. That Spirit... People, give Sejohn the credit for the Spirit Tracks joke, because it was actually setting appropriate. I made a fart joke. And Grandma said you won't go poor with dick and fart jokes, but...
Yeah, the starving artist of the actual wit. Yeah, so you headed out to the Retro World Gaming Expo this week, right?
Yeah, Retro World Expo in Hartford. And can I tell you, Hartford is pretty much a convention city.
I had Hartford is a dangerous place. I don't like. That's all I will say about Hartford. Hart School of Music is out that way and stuff like that. So I've spent some time out there, and it is a city that really needs an upgrade. I don't know how to say this without being mean, but man, Hartford, I don't want to go back to you right now.
When was the last time you were in Hartford, Sejohn? Because this upgrade may have happened.
Well, so there's a bunch of really rich white people in the Hartford area, which has led to a lot of things like heroin issues and cocaine issues and things.
That's everywhere.
So, Hartford has the crime rate to go with it, like the murder rate to go with it. I mean, so you got to be real careful on the streets of Hartford, because you end up with a lot of people that have found themselves with like opioid addictions and things like that, and stuff that, like, to be fair, over the last 10 years we have become more savvy about. So I'm sure that things have gotten better than they were, but right in the middle of the crisis about a decade ago, when it was really kind of a secret crisis still, like we weren't really talking about it, it was a bad scene, because opioid addiction as the main player. So maybe over the last few years things have gotten better.
Oh, it has been Starbucked to hell.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not a huge fan of the term Starbucking, but that is what has happened. That convention center is pretty much like, come to Hartford, come to our convention center. It's literally right off the highway. You get off the highway and you're in our parking lot. And then like across the street from it is, my mother's like, is it in like a mall, when I described the place that we ate? And I'm like, no, but it's mall-esque. Like, I understand why you said that. Because it had like a Ted's Montana grill and like 2 barbecue places and a 4D sit down Starlight Theater experience. And so like it was cool. Like, it felt like this city has been designed, or at least this little cutout of the city has specifically been designed with the conventioneer in mind.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's exactly it, right? Is you've got this thing that they can kind of hang their hat on and start to rebuild from. So I hope that that's what they're doing because I never want to see a city fall. And it's good to no, I mean, like it's nice to hear that they're getting their act together. But no, the last time I was in Hartford, it was very much like a don't go out past 9 o'clock situation. Um,
That I did not get that. I was like, this is kind of like Toronto in the 2000s, which Toronto
so
has only gotten safer. So I went to Retro World Expo. I'm sorry. And I competed in Frag's event, which was called the Ultimate Gamer Challenge.
bum bum bum.
Thank you for that. See, when you do a sting, I accept it and I build it up. Not like you was like, what were you saying? What were you doing with that Devon? And I only bring that up because we recorded that American Sweetheart episode like a month and a half before we released it. And you like called me out like, what are you doing? As I did like a little sting for you. And then in the messenger, I did a sting for you again and you called it out. And I'm like, it's just a Sejohn problem at this point. So we need to address
Stop calling
it.
out my bits.
And we need to address it in front of people or you won't get better. It can't be a secret crisis anymore. So I competed in the Ultimate Gamer Challenge. And I have to tell you, what I did was they told us what the games were going to be. And I went out and I bought 13 of the 15 games that were going to be played.
All right. Well, let's take this back even one step further. The whole point of this competition, well, because I don't think that people really understand the grasp of what you're saying if you don't mention the fact that the whole concept was all of these games were going to be played on original console, like material. I don't know what word I was looking for there, but anyway. But like,
original
so what
hardware?
kind of games are we talking about? Hardware. Thank you.
So it ranged from the earliest systems were Atari 2600s, and the latest system was the Dreamcast.
Right. But every game,
also,
original hardware, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So that was fun. It was a fun little experience. Like, and the games that were played were Sequest for the Atari, Lode Runner, Ninja Gaiden, and Road Blasters for the NES, Super Ghouls and Ghosts on Super Nintendo. On Genesis, you had Vector Man and Zoop. On the N64, they did Tetrasphere. On the PlayStation, like the OG PlayStation, it was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, a game that I had never played before. So it was fun learning that for the first time.
I was about to say PS1, but nope, not the PS1, because everybody seems to forget that they shot themselves in the foot by releasing the PS1 as the third console.
Well, the PS1, no, that's Microsoft, sweetheart.
The PS1, the Xbox One.
Yeah, but Microsoft. No, but that was them releasing their third console and calling it that.
Yes.
The PS1 was the second revision of the original PlayStation they called the PS1 for some reason. And I think it's because the PS2 had already come out by that point.
Right.
And then on Dreamcast, you had Power Stone and Crazy Taxi, right? Because those are games, right? People know those games.
Hey, Crazy Taxi, man, it still has its avid fan base. I remember Crazy Taxi back in the day being like the thing that everybody around me was talking about.
Let me tell you, it does still have a crazy avid fan base because I did not think I had the skills to compete in Crazy Taxi. Like, I didn't think I had them. So I went out to the internet, typed in Crazy Taxi. CrazyTaxi.net is still active and has all you need to know to impress your buddies at the arcade.
There's something very unique about racing games that kind of maintain that fan base, though, because, like, I mean, any Burnout game, right, will have that avid fan base. But you know the other weird one that gets me all the time that I forget people still, like, play and love is Simpsons Hit and Run.
Yeah, someone brought up, like, he's like, I've never played Crazy Taxi, but I've done Simpsons Hit and Run. And I'm like, basically the same thing. A little bit easier. Like,
yeah. But, like, I forget that that's still one out there that people are like, the best Simpsons game ever made?
Hit and Run.
Hit and Run.
Hit and Run.
Yeah.
That's the one where you actually get to drive the Homer, right?
Yes. As one of the vehicles, I believe, that you can pick up.
You unlock it at the end of the second chapter. And it's like, I'm like, I'm in for $1. And I also forgot to mention Super Mario 64 on the N64 and Tetrasphere on the
Oh
N64.
man, hell's yeah!
And
3D
then
Tetris,
3D
good 3D Tetris.
Kind of good 3D Tetris, but we'll get there.
Well,
And
because
then
there was some 3D Tetris on the Virtual Boy that was kind of not so good.
yeah, what was
But-
that
but
called?
then
Oh,
one-
Battle Tetris, I think it's called too. Like it's like
yeah. But when it came around to the Tetrisphere,
yeah,
people
Tetrisphere
felt
is
a
a
lot better
better
about that.
Tetris. That's in
Yeah.
3 dimensions. And then it was 3 arcade cabinet games: Centipede, Mortal Kombat 2, and R-Type.
Okay.
So like it ran the gamut, these games. And the only 2 games that I did not have copies of were Centipede, because
Right.
I had an R-Type and Mortal Kombat. They released emulation style on PS3 and the Wii of those 2 games. So I at least got to familiarize myself a little bit with them. And it was impossible for me to find a copy of, I cannot think of the game now, because there was another one that, Power Stone. No, not Power Stone. Yeah, no. Oh my God. The only game I did not play was Centipede.
Yeah.
Because I was able to I borrowed a copy of Power Stone from a friend. Yeah, that's it. I ended up playing Power Stone before this weekend too.
Yeah, so your house has just been a haven of old systems and games.
So that day that we went to go see The Little Mermaid, which I promise we're going to talk about as soon as the theater close to Sejohn shows it, or he finds
I can go see
a
it,
way
yeah.
to watch it, we will talk about it. But that night, the reason we were at that theater killing time was they were delivering a new dining room table to Decker Base 13. This thing is gorgeous. It fills our entire dining room. Like, we're going to have to redesign it. But this motherfucking table, Siege, easily sits 12 people. So it's like a big tavern table.
Oh, is this where the meetings of the minds are now going to happen?
Yeah.
Where the elite are going to gather and plan the future?
There's a wine dinner happening at our house in 2 days.
Damn.
That's why we got the table. We scheduled the wine dinner, and then we're like, we just need to make sure we get a table here at least 2 weeks beforehand.
Excellent.
So we have this big table, and my parents have been away. They traveled to Southampton in England and back on the Queen Mary 2. So they were gone for 2 weeks, and we had this beautiful table. So I picked up our 2 CRTs that we have in the basement studio area where I am right now, set them up on the 2 ends of the table, and then set up an NES, a Super NES, my Dreamcast, my PlayStation, my N64. I had to go and buy another Genesis because the only Sega I have is the big guy that has a Genesis, a Sega CD, and a 32X.
The
And that
Master
thing's
System? No, what is that?
the Master System.
Yeah, okay.
Not the Master System. The Genesis. Yeah, the Master. I don't know. The Sega Genesis Master System. I don't. You're screwing me up here. But the one that like the Genesis, the Sega CD, and the 32X.
Yeah.
I call it my Trinity. I call it my Sega Trinity.
There it is.
And the thing that thing is a monster to like set up. So I'm like, I'm gonna go out and see if I can find a Sega Genesis for cheap. And I went to a game shop, and they had one of the Sega Genesis 3 models, the 3rd revision of it, which I don't know if you've ever seen one of those.
No, I didn't realize they even got that deep into revising them.
The thing is so small. It's beautiful. It's like the perfect portable version of a Sega Genesis. It's also super cost effective.
I believe you are forgetting about the Nomad. But yeah,
I have a Nomad too, but this thing's smaller than the Nomad. I will be straight with you. This
honestly,
thing is smaller than the Nomad.
That doesn't actually surprise me. The Nomad, you had to have like a backpack to carry it around. So,
and the best thing, the cost-cutting measure in this is there's no light to indicate that the system is on.
Oh.
When you switch the power switch up, there's an orange sticker underneath it. So it emulates as if a power button were on.
Nice. Very nice.
But the other nice thing about this one is it directly does AV output. Like I know that like that's a thing that's like some of the earlier ones were only RF out.
Right.
So this was the thing. So I saw it for $40 and I'm like, I guess I'll pick it up. Turns out Labor Day, everything was 25% off. So I got that for $30 and I'm like, this is a good day. This is a good day. Didn't even have to use my AK, Siege. So the reason that we practiced mostly was because Dale came along with me. And Dale does not have years of experience with these games. So I wanted to make sure that she had as much time as possible to practice all of these retro games that would be the challenge set piece for the Retro Gamer the Ultimate Gamer Challenge at Retro World Expo.
I feel like we also should put like a footnote in here to just remind people about your uncanny ability to video game whisper, as we've talked about in the past. So like that's the other side of all of this is Dale has not had the experience with the on top of that also you just fall into the.
Do we want to talk about the fact
just
though?
Don't.
Okay, but Dale is also pretty good at sight reading video games because she had the high score on Centipede, a game that we did not prepare for, except for by watching Pixels the night before we head up. And look at that one Centipede scene.
But hey, I mean, we even found out Leia had a little bit of the Force in her too, so like I'm not that surprised.
Hurtful to do that to Dale. She is worth more than the joke that you just made of her expense. and you know, but like mad props because your brother and I have been talking about The Last Jedi all friggin' day. Because he's like, this one thing would make it a better movie. But I'll save that for their show tomorrow. Listen to Say Report Jr. It drops on Wednesdays. They're sort of better at this than us.
Well, no, they're better at what they do than us. We'll just do something different.
That's very true. We're two different shows. But yeah, she had the high score in Centipede until the last 30 minutes of the block that Centipede was a game. So like, and that's a game that she didn't practice. That's a game she sat down, played that day, and the referee was like, "So you just set the high score on the machine?" And she's like, "Oh, that's cool. Like for the competition." He's like, "No, on the machine."
Yeah, this cabinet just lives here, and so we're talking about like decades of people playing it.
And she's like, "Oh, that's cool."
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Good for her. Congratulations, Dale.
So that's a big shout to her. So while she may not have my exact video whisperer sight reading ability, she ain't no slouch.
Yeah.
So we sit down with these games. Now, a lot of the games were games that I had played at the Retro Gamer Challenge in April. So I was expecting the challenges to be similar to those.
Okay.
Like Ninja Gaiden, in order to get the highest amount of points in that, you had to score 100,000 points.
And this is the competition from 6
this
or
is the
7
April
months back.
one, yeah.
The April one, okay.
5 months, I believe.
I can.
So I'm thinking like, oh, wait, so I just got to score 100,000 points on Ninja Gaiden again. That won't be a problem. No, everything got kicked up to 11. And the point total needed to get 10 points in Ninja Gaiden was 200,000. If you could get that 100,000, you would get 8 out of a possible 10 points. But you had
Whoa, that's a hell of a curve, man.
Suddenly... I mean, like, one of the complaints that I have about this is that the curves, as you got higher point-wise, did not make any sense. Like, Road Blasters, which is a game, I don't know if you've ever played Road Blasters on the NES.
I have never touched it.
So
it's one of those ones I saw on the shelf at Major Video every time I would go, and it had a terrible box art, so being a 7-year-old boy did not grab it.
Yeah, it's basically Rad Racer, but you have a gun in your car. That's literally
all right. Well,
now
I want to play it.
And as you're playing, a little plane the same color as your car comes and drops attachments. And one of them is an Uzi. So you could be driving around with a machine gun mounted to the front of your car. Just like Machine Gun Kelly, I imagine. I don't know why they call him that. Is it that? Is that the reason?
So what's the point curve on this one?
So
what happened?
To get 9 points in Road Blaster, you needed to get 500,000 points.
Okay.
To get 10 points in Road Blaster, you needed to get 1,000,000 points.
Guys, come on.
Yeah, that's like you need to basically do this whole challenge twice in one sitting.
The real killer on that is you're also presenting a situation in which somebody could get 950,000 points and somebody could get 500,000 points and they still get the same number of points.
Yes.
Like, that's crazy.
Yes. And actually, the referee was sitting next to me and he was like, we tried to talk him down because 1,000,000 points, like, basically, it's getting a kill screen in Donkey Kong. Like, you need to play this game basically perfect in order to get the score to roll over.
Oh, man.
And they're like, we tried to get him to go to 750, because like it just seemed more realistic, and he insisted that we stay at the million, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Like I can do a million. I ended up dying at 830.
Oh,
And it's just because like it was bad RNG, because like another element in that game is that like the villain cars show up randomly, and like I was going so fast that like one of the cars you can't destroy showed up right in my path, and I thought it would be safe, and nope.
yeah.
And it just slowed me down, because like dying doesn't affect you. It just means that you use up a little bit more fuel, and your fuel, as long as you have fuel, you keep playing the game.
See, now you're talking about it, and all I can think of is Spy Hunter in my head. But
it's not. But it's more the Rad Racer setup.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
Spy
yeah.
Hunter is top down. You're
Right.
like at like a third person view of your car in Road Blasters. It's really fun. But it's frustrating because to accelerate, you have to hold up on the control pad. So you're going to be constantly holding up and then like rocking left and right to steer. You don't have great control in the game. And the other thing is that your multiplier goes up to 10, and that's killing 10 vehicles without missing. And then every miss subtracts 1 from your multiplier. So, like, perfection is what this game is asking for.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm pretty happy with what I did, but oh my god. And the big one, like Ninja Gaiden going to 200,000. I, yesterday morning, woke up at 5 o'clock and tried to figure out places where I could safely grind points in that game. Because the crazy thing about Ninja Gaiden is it's timed.
Yeah.
So, like, you have 150 seconds in every level. So, like, if you grind early on, you're probably not going to be able to make it to the end.
Right.
So I tried to find a place near enough to the end, to like the transition point in every level, that reset the timer so that I could grind up enemies. And then like I crunched the numbers to know at exactly what count on the timer I needed to head to the door in order to make it to the next level.
See, so what you're describing here feels very broken to me. I mean, and take this with a grain of salt as somebody that was not there, somebody that does not do these types of competitions. But like, to me, if the point of these competitions is really to kind of like, to show off what people can do in these games, at some point when it gets to a point where the only way you can get to the arbitrary goals that they're setting are to basically not play the game the way it was meant to be played, that doesn't seem very fun to me anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's very that doesn't seem like that's worth it to me. That it's almost like when you're looking at a list of achievements for games, and I also understand that I'm one of the last people that ever care about that stuff anymore now too. But like when I look at a list of achievements for a game, I don't care about getting every achievement in the game. I care about getting the ones that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense for like what this game is. Like I'd love to do that. But there's some achievements in like Borderlands or in the Darksider series where it is like, go do this thing that is very much not this style of game, but if you do it, we'll give you an achievement. It's like, no, I don't care enough about that. Like it's cool, guys. I'll do the achievements I want, but like, and it's the same thing where like if I was at this type of competition and I found out that in order to get I had to get the 200,000 points in Ninja Gaiden, but really the only way to do that is to not play it like you play Ninja Gaiden. No thanks, guys. I'll stick with my 7 or 8 points that I can get otherwise and move on.
Yeah. And as an example, I said we were done with the messenger, but I will just point out like one of those achievements that is really not how you would play the game. Mm-hmm. There's a cave that is just a black screen
right
halfway through the game, and you get a candle so that you can see in there. There's an achievement for doing it without the candle. And
okay.
Like, I've watched 2 guys who've learned that room so they can do it in the dark, so they can save the time on going to get the candle. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. This is not fun to me.
Yeah. A lot of stuff in Meat Boy got like that for me. Like, I started speed running it and doing some really good things with it. And after a while, a lot of people in that community were like, well, now you've got to try and do it this way with these characters and in this style. And I'm like, nah, I don't care too much about the side characters in Meat Boy, because the whole point of that game to me is like the way that Meat Boy runs and moves. It's cool that like Commander Video and stuff are in it and that you can play as these other characters, but it's not Super Meat Boy anymore once you start playing in those different ways. It just becomes a different game. And so I just didn't bother with a lot of that sort of stuff. So
I respect that. I honestly respect that. Because it's weird that stuff. Like Super Meat Boy, one of those things is they have like achievements for like never dying. And it's like if you die one time, that achievement is locked out unless you fully reset the game.
right,
Like
exactly.
it's not just like one of these things where it's like, okay, I'm going to start a new game and I'm going to start at world 1. It's like, yeah, but you died in that other one on here.
Yep.
That don't count.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, okay, that's a level of insanity that I'm not cool with. And I will agree with you about like playing a game in a way that's not. One of the games was Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and the game that I was mad at in the event in April was Ninja Gaiden. One of the reasons why I was able to learn how to get 200,000 points in a day was because I spent so much time learning Ninja Gaiden back in April of this year.
Right.
And to the fact that, like, I've never really considered getting a tattoo, fuck Ninja Gaiden was something I was, like, willing to put on my body as just, like, a constant reminder that, like, oh, I beat it, but fuck that game. And the game that was like that this time around was Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Have you ever played Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Sejohn?
Oh, I mean, have I started it up, died 1,000 times, and quit within 10 minutes? Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's it.
Like, yeah.
So here's a cool thing about Super Ghouls and Ghosts. There's a chest system, right?
Okay.
You find treasure chests. And in those treasure chests are things that really make the game easier. But the treasure chests exist in this whole crazy chart that is followed based on what you're wearing when you find the chest and what number chest in the level it is that you found.
Okay.
So this is what I spent 2 weeks learning, was all of the chest locations in the first 2 levels of Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Okay.
And that was based on, they do an event called the Super 16 every year. It's an online event, and they give you 16 goals in 16 Super Nintendo games, and people compete to see who can like finish it as a relay the fastest.
Cool.
And Super Ghouls and Ghosts was part of it last year, maybe this year, like recently. And their goal was to beat the first 3 levels, which like that's crazy. Let's talk about it. And I was playing out. I met this guy Lance at the April thing. We've since like begin to grow a little friendship. He's a good guy. Shout out to Lance. I really enjoy hanging out with Lance. And we were playing Contra 3, and he's like, "Yeah, let's switch to something else." I'm like, "Hey, before we switch to something else, could I just jump into Super Ghouls and Ghosts? Because I haven't played it on actual hardware. I've only been like practicing on an emulator, so I'd like to do it like on hardware." And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead, go for it." So I'm playing Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and he's sitting there, and I beat the first level, and he goes, "So whatever the challenge is, you're good." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "People can't beat the first level of Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Like, that's not a thing that, like, the random person off the street who's participating in this competition is going to be able to do."
Was it an arcade game? Is it built to eat quarters? Is that why it is as hard as it is?
Well, that's a whole other thing that I'd love to explore. Ghouls and Ghosts was an arcade game, and then Super Ghouls and Ghosts was the Super Nintendo modification of it that added some more stuff to it. Like in the arcade game, you go right from the regular armor to the gold armor.
Okay.
They added a bronze armor between them, and they also added a shield on top of the gold armor. So like they modified it that way. In a lot of games.
So I mean, like,
but actually,
it is a game that was built to eat quarters then.
But that's not it. Those games were built to get rented over and over and over again. Like the thing that people don't understand, and it's one of these things that like only recently came to light for me, is that the reason why Nintendo Hard existed is Nintendo didn't fucking like the idea of people being able to rent a game and not buy a game.
Exactly.
Because it ate into their bottom line. So they deliberately made it so the games were difficult so that people would rent and rent and rent games, and they would get a bigger percentage of the profits for the games that they sold to rental organizations.
Or give up and just buy your own copy. Either way, they win because they get more of your money that way too. So
Exactly. That is 100% what it was. Microtransactions are not new. They're just, there's no way to disguise them as like the mom and pop rental store. Like
exactly.
when it's in the actual game from the publisher, you get angry at the publisher. But when you're going down to the Victory Market in Gardner Center and renting games, you're getting mad at the Victory Market at the Gardner Center.
Man, so Super Ghouls and Ghosts this time around. What was your what was
The
the big challenge?
challenge was to collect 40 money bags. Let me tell you, there are not 40 money bags in the first level of Super Ghouls and Ghosts. So what I did was collected the money bags in the beginning of the game, and there's like 6. Right? I'm trying to do the math in my head. Like there's 6 before you get to the water area of the first level, where there are then 12.
Okay.
And then once I got there, I collected those 12, killed myself, and then did it again. And then killed myself and did it again. And I was still short 2 bags after grinding up that way, because the challenge was to collect 40 bags of gold before losing all lives. And you have 3 lives, and you get an extra one at 20,000 points. And if you're collecting bags of gold, which are worth 500 or 1,000 points, you're getting that extra life. So basically, you have 4 lives to collect 40 money bags. Which,
yeah, I mean, works. I mean, you're playing into the rules and everything that's there, and you're being watched by a judge this whole time, right? Like, they weren't calling you out for, like, exploitation or anything like that?
No. In fact, like, a lot of them are like, yeah, that's sort of how I figured you'd have to do this.
Yeah,
like,
see?
and the girl at Ninja Gaiden was like, this is exactly what my strategy was when they told me what it was. Get to this point where it's easy to spawn that guy and just keep killing him until time runs out. And I'm like, yeah, except I'm not going to let time run out because that's stupid. Like, I'm going to go to the next level and then find the next location that's like that.
Right, exactly. Just keep going. Well, I mean, see, and that's exactly what it is, right? Is now you're no longer playing Super Ghouls and Ghosts, right? You're playing a different game entirely, you know, and that is a shame because, like, this kind of, like, retro gaming shouldn't be about, like, exploitations and cheats and stuff like that, right? Like, it should be about, like, playing these games. I guess it's weird to say the way that they were intended to be played, but, like, that's what it feels like, right? Like, if this is a group of people that want to really celebrate retro gaming and celebrate, like, these games on their merits, like, the challenges should be formulated in a way that really highlight what these games are good at, right? So, like, Super Ghouls and Ghosts is just saying, why not make the thing, like, you know, get to the 3rd level, you know, like something crazy that people just normally can't do unless they really have a love for these games, right? Like what you're talking about, even I could figure out a way to probably do that, right? And maybe it would take me a longer, so like timing I might get screwed, but I could probably collect like 10
also,
bags and then kill
you
myself.
could try as much as you want. There's no
Right.
limit to the amount of times that you can compete in each of the 4-hour blocks that the competition was broken up into.
Yeah.
5 games, 4 hours. So, like, by the time you're playing Super Ghouls and Ghosts 4th, 5th time, hopefully you figure out that, like, oh, I can collect these and that.
And then die.
Yeah. And the other weird thing about it is, and here's what I actually want to was trying to bring up before, but you derailed me. You beautifully derailed me. I'm not upset about the derailing that we took, but it was what I wanted to bring up is when I got there, the organizer, because, you know, he organized both of these events. He's like, did you practice Super Ghouls and Ghosts? And I'm like, yeah, like, of course I did. You told us all the games. I practiced all of the games. and he's like, how far did you get? Did you at least get to the 2nd level? And I'm like, I got to the 5th level once. And he's like, oh. He's like, I can't even get to the 2nd level. And then that's a thing where it's like, so you're making the challenge this, and then you're admitting to me that you yourself have never really completed this challenge.
So, like, where is this coming from? Like, where? Oh,
where
man.
are you choosing these arbitrary numbers from? And
Yeah.
the weirdest thing about it, though, and this is the thing that, like, kind of stuck it sticks in my craw a little bit, but in a strange way. Is the only people that I was ever impressing with my ability to play these games were the people who were assigned to referee. Like Ninja Gaiden, there's a quick kill to most of the bosses, and it's to get the spinning blade and to activate it right as you start jumping and just stay inside of them for the time of your jump. And I did that because, I'm trying to maximize my points, and your time left at the end of a boss fight adds to your points. I did it, and both of the referees were like, how did you do that? So then, in addition to having to play through level 2-1 of Ninja Gaiden, trying to maximize my points, I'm explaining to them how to get a quick kill against the bosses. Because I need to justify that what I did is legit in a weird way. It sort of felt like, but also there was this real that was impressive. I didn't know that was a possibility. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, you just need to know the game. I mean, here's how crazy I got with Ninja Gaiden. Because I thought it was 100,000 and I wanted to maximize that. I played through that game with a notebook and marked down what every single torch that you break gives you. So I knew the torches to break that gave me something that actually increased my score or increased my ability to score, and the ones to avoid because it wasted a little bit of time. I have that for the first 4 levels of that game.
Yeah. Well, what's weird to me is it sounds to me like these guys underestimated that there were people out there like you. And here's the thing. I mean, I know I joke all the time about how you are so unique in this world, but there are other people out there that figure this stuff out, and we know this because we live in a world now where video games aren't a fringe thing. Well, video games aren't a fringe thing anymore. We now realize that anybody and everybody plays video games, from the person that's playing Candy Crush on their phone while they're on the bus to the people like you that are sitting down and writing down beautiful mind style notes about how to get through Ninja Gaiden with the most points. That spectrum is very
spectrum was an interesting word to use.
Well, but we are aware that there are people on both ends of that and everything in between, right? So an organization like this, they just don't seem to be very savvy about what the actual people in their organization want from them, and that's a shame because something like this it sounds amazing, and I don't want to make this sound like we're just crapping on this whole thing this entire time, because this is an amazing thing and a super fun thing that you did and all of that. It's just funny to me that these guys set out to do this thing, and it seems like they didn't realize that there were people out there that were going to care as much as you, which is a shame because no, people out there, they are into this stuff and they figured this stuff out, and the conversations about what makes this, what would be a good challenge for this particular game? What would be a hard challenge? When is it an insane number that you're putting out there? Also, the ability to do these things,
there was a lack of
what counts as
is what I'm going to say.
What counts as an exploit and what isn't an exploit? That's a weird balance that you really need to work out and find. And you mentioned earlier that this is only the 4th year that they're doing something like this, right?
No, Frag has been going on since 2011. It's the 4th year of the Retro World Expo convention, but it's the first year that Frag has had a presence there.
Okay.
So they've been around for 7 years. And actually, I have a story to tell about that when you talk about the spectrum. But I did want to address the inconsistency in scoring.
Yeah.
Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, to get 7 points, you had to get 50,000 points.
On a
in
trick?
The hangar.
Oh.
In the hangar, in the 2-minute score attack that is the basis of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
Right.
You had to get 10,000 points over the challenge score in the level.
Okay.
And then the next one was 75, 100, 150.
Okay.
Those aren't difficult.
No.
Those are not really if you know this game well, 50,000, they're if you get to 50,000, you'll get the next level of point. Because I did it and I got to 40,000, and I'm I'm happy with that, right? I got the high score in the hangar amount. That's what I've been shooting for this whole week.
Right.
And he's like, if you can bring it up to 50,000, you'll get another point. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll try it one more time. There's nobody waiting. And I did it. I got it to 50,000. And I don't care that I basically just scummed rail tricks and like balances at the end of the half pipe, because it got me up to the points that I needed. And
Well,
that was
and I mean,
7
give
points.
give any 12-year-old a six-pack of Mountain Dew and a bag of Doritos, and they can pretty much figure out how to get 200,000 points in a run of that game pretty easily. I mean, like, I love Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 and spent a lot of time doing it. So I feel like maybe out of all of the games you've named, this might actually be the one that I could do this challenge in. So like it's weird to hear you say that after all these other games that you've mentioned where I've just been in awe of like the talent that was required for all of this stuff, to suddenly have a challenge in front of me where I'm just like, oh, okay. like that's a weird, it is an inconsistency for sure.
Well, you want to talk about awe and stuff. The Vector Man challenge, to get 10 points, you had to score 20,000 points in 3 minutes. And he's like, yeah, so Vector Man, that one, how you feel about that? I'm like, that's easy. I just got to beat the first 2 levels. And he's like, but you only have 3 minutes. And I'm like, I can finish the first level in 90 seconds. And I'm like, and I'm purely basing it off the fact that the level bonus amount is 10,000 points. It's like, have you played Vector Man? Like,
Yeah,
do you know?
it's almost like they didn't do the math on some pretty common sense stuff with this.
Yeah, he's like, well, we wanted some to be easy, and I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, that's fine. Like, again, I'm not trying to disparage, but like, he just seemed like in such awe that I could beat the first 2 levels of Vector Man in 3 minutes. And I'm like, I'll have time left over to dink around in the 3rd level if I want to.
You know what it is?
Like,
for a bunch of dudes, and I shouldn't say dudes, for a bunch of people that are into this retro gaming stuff and like preservation and all of this stuff that must come along with being in this type of organization, how do they not know that YouTube exists? Like, just hop on YouTube and just type in these challenges from time to time and just see what people are doing out there. You know what I mean? Like, you want to see somebody score points at Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, I guarantee you that there's a dozen or more videos out there of people just being like, here's how you score 1,000,000 points in 2 minutes in Tony Hawk. Like, dude, this stuff exists out there.
The challenge in Crazy Taxi was to get a crazy license, which is 20,000 points or more. Okay. I found a video on YouTube that showed how to do that in 2 minutes. I could not pull off the exploit that was required of it. I only got 7 points in that game because I got to 4,000 once. But like, I mean, that's also a pretty steep thing. But it basically was just the license requirements that were the point totals. And I watched that video a bunch, and I'm like, yeah, if anyone can pull this off, and it's not super hard, it's just like one of those things where like I couldn't make it consistent enough that it was like, I'm going to just focus on pulling this off.
Yeah, but then you talk about something like Ninja Gaiden, where like the only way to pull it off is to basically find out like some weird trick.
Yeah, it's yeah. And here's the other thing. I think we talked about it on the show. The final challenge in the event in April was who could collect the most 1-ups in Super Mario Brothers 3 in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And when I was talking to the person in charge, he's like, so are you ready for the finals? Because they kept the finals like relatively secret. And once we get to the 50-minute mark on this, we're going to transition into what the finals were for this. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, well, I will be if it's not another collect lives challenge, because like that's not how I play video games.
Yeah,
that's not. I play video games to finish them, and I'm not really the kind of person who pauses to grind up lives to do that. So like that's a complete black spot on it. And he's like, well, let me tell you, I did not know that exploit existed until the day of the event. And I'm like, oh. And he's like, yeah. And someone said to me, there's this way to get extra lives in the second level of the game. And my response to them, I brushed them off and said, no one's going to know how to do that. And then 2 of you knew how to do
that. Surprise.
So it's like, okay. Like you said, like there's all of these people out there who are just for the fun of it, just for the passion of it, collecting all of this information about that stuff. And I've known about that 1-up trick since I bought a Nintendo Power like collection from a library in 1994.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I guess I guess what it comes down to, and like I'm trying to figure out a way to like justify like all of this like privileged language that we've been using for the last 40 minutes, because like I get it. There are people out there that can't do these things, and they probably, when they hear us talk about this stuff in this way, probably think that we're a couple of assholes for being so
Yeah, I don't want
brush off
want
about it.
anyone to think that
And I
I'm
don't
trying to be a gatekeeper. If you're
right.
playing old video games, I want to sit, I want to talk with you. I want to teach you things. I want to learn things from you. I watched a dude playing Tetrisphere at a level that I didn't even know existed.
Right. So I think what it is that really kind of grinds both of our gears, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, Devon, but it's this idea that it just proves that these guys, again, I'm using guys and I shouldn't, because I'm sure that it's just guys that are doing this, but these people that run this retro gaming stuff, they live in a bubble and don't seem to understand what has happened in gaming in the last 15, 20 years. Like they're so caught up on these retro games that they don't seem to understand that, like, as much as we have moved away from this stuff, there are still people that go back. There are still people that still break these games down and figure these things out. We use new technology to learn how to play these old games better. And so we have people playing these older games now in a way that I'm sure 20 years ago, telling somebody to collect lives in Super Mario Brothers was a crazy challenge, right? But now we have so many people like essentially brute forcing these games and figuring out these exploits that like all of this stuff really needs to be meticulously like tracked down and talked about and discussed, and you can't do that if you don't ever look outward. It just sounds like all of these people are just looking so inward into what they could do, what they think is hard, what they think is a challenge, what they think is a good game and a good way to play a game, that like it doesn't translate to everybody because they don't bother looking at what everybody else in the world is doing. Because like you were saying, like you just jumped on YouTube and just typed in one thing and you found a video that would have of a person that could have blown that crazy taxi thing out of the water, and anybody out there with access to YouTube could basically have found that exploit and practiced it and bam, shown up and done it. Like that's not fun.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing. And it's like, and that's the other thing, is like I'm walking this thin line against like what is an exploit that I want to use. Like I don't think it's any sort of exploit, me putting into time to play through Ninja Gaiden and meticulously note what every power-up drop is.
Right. Well, because there's some people out there that can do that just because they've played Ninja Gaiden their whole lives. So you teaching yourself to play a game isn't an exploit. That's what we all do as we play games.
And
it just so happens a lot of people do it
down,
over time.
The real reason I wrote it down is so I could give it to Dale so she could familiarize herself with it. So she's not getting stuck with like a lame Nimpo power-up.
Yeah.
So that she can hold on to the ones that matter.
Well, and the question of like where is the line on an exploit is always like a tricky one, right? Because like there's stuff that, you know, I don't always recognize cheating, but I do know it when I see it. Like, so somebody sneakily throwing a cheat code in on Tony Hawk before they go in and having perfect balance so that they can just grind for 20 minutes and then jump off with 3 million points. Like that's cheating. Plain and simple.
There's
right?
no way that wouldn't be cheating.
But anybody that remembers that if you perform a manual and a couple of other tricks as the timer runs out, you actually keep going and collecting points as long as you are still performing tricks, you could actually keep the game going. And I feel like that actually requires enough skill that I don't consider that cheating anymore. That's just a real, like, that's the way that I got through a lot of those square challenges.
That's knowledge.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That's knowing the game. Because I tried to make sure that as I was at like 2 seconds left, I started a big grind. And I tried to do my grind like line through the course as long as possible.
Tip tricks, manuals, and grinds, and you can just push that timer as long as you can maintain that stuff. And if you can maintain it and get that score, like that is something that I believe is like points worthy for sure, right? Yeah. So like trying to figure out exactly what we would consider an exploit versus a cheat versus just breaking the game is a difficult conversation. And so like they've got to be having that conversation, and it sounds like they're not always.
Well, here's the big thing that I'll point out. I met the guy who won the very first Frag Retro Gamer Challenge this weekend. He is now a musician. He goes by the name Falconeer. He does like really cool electronic stuff. And he performed at the after party of the event. Seemed like a nice guy, but he's like, yeah, the guy. He had like this weird sort of like pride in me being there because of what my skills and ability were, the guy in charge of it. So he introduces me to him, and he's like, yeah, he just came to the event in April. And this guy who had won the challenge before goes, oh yeah, you're the dude who blew me out of the water. He's like, you completely, like, he's like, I didn't realize that level existed. And that not only supports your whole thing about this group of people living in a bubble about what retro gaming is, but also that like it is a spectrum of what people think is good and what is difficult in the
Right.
realm of retro gaming.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is true of all sport, right? Like, I mean, we put anybody that plays football today up against a guy playing football 100 years ago, and obviously they're gonna win. I mean, like, the
Baseball.
talents and
Come on,
abilities and
baseball in the 30s, like it was just out of shape guys,
right.
right?
Well, right. And on top of that, like, so we've learned things about training. And I mean, then I'm paralleling this with video games exactly. We've learned things about the ways that we train, the skills that we actually need. Also, on top of that, people are starting younger and younger to do these things. Video games back in the day used to be a thing that, like, if you couldn't get to an arcade, you had to be old enough to make money to get a system at home. Nowadays, people been getting Nintendos for Christmas since the 90s, right? So, like, there are a bunch of kids out there that just grew up with gaming in front of them. So now we're hitting a point where, like, we've got to up the challenge. We've got to up our understanding of what people are capable of. And if you're not out there doing the research to actually, like, figure out what is going on in the esports world right now, like, it's not gonna stick, because you're gonna have a harder and harder time finding people to remain interested in this stuff if you're not staying on top of the newest waves of, like, talent and ability.
Like even 100,000 points in Ninja Gaiden, right? In 3 lives, because you don't get extra lives in Ninja Gaiden when you get to score stuff. 3 lives to get that seemed like a 10 point challenge to me. Because basically you need to play through 3 levels of the game.
Yeah.
In order to do that. And that's collecting every single point that's out there, maximizing boss kills. Like that, I'm like, this is a level of challenge that I think is not only, competitive, but fair. So then when I get there and
Yeah.
see that I needed to somehow milk 1,000 more points out of my runs of Ninja Gaiden, I'm like
100,000 more points.
100. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I had to double what I was doing.
Yeah, let's
in
not
those
downplay
3
this.
levels.
Yeah.
Like that was a moment for me. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I mean, and I hope this is something that they can figure out. Like, I hope that this is something that they do keep working on, because, like, I am extremely interested in the idea of this, but the execution on a lot of the stuff that you've been talking about sounds like it just wouldn't be for me. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean that even just as a spectator. Like, it'd be really cool to see a bunch of people playing video games well. I love that idea. But if what I'm going to do is show up and watch a bunch of people play video games in a way that I don't really want to see them be played, and also, like, pulling their hair out and getting frustrated, and I'm sure that there were people there this weekend that, like, heart and soul have played Ghouls and Ghosts their entire lives, and then they go to play this game to do this one particular challenge, and it's just not the way that they've ever played that game before. That's got to hurt a little bit, right? Like, you walk in thinking, I got this, I've played Super Ghouls and Ghosts my whole life, and then you show up and it's just like this arbitrary thing that means nothing to you as a fan of the game. Who is that for, right? Like, it's not for the player, because that's not what they want to be doing while they play it. It's not for me as the spectator, because that's not what I want to watch somebody struggle to do, right? Like who is the audience for this challenge exactly?
But that's what I'm saying. There really wasn't an audience for the challenge, and that's the strangest thing about it. My audience was my referees.
Yeah.
Like, because they had all played the game, so that they had a cursory knowledge of them.
Right.
And then, like, I sat down on Sequest, a game from, like, 87, and had to score 100,000 points. And the judge is like, hold on one second. And she brought over people, and she's like, I know how good you are at this game. I want to show you off to people. And if she didn't do that, like, people wouldn't have seen, like, what a almost perfect run of Sequest would look like. Like, Load Runner was one of the games, and that game is a monster. And you had to clear 10 levels to get 10 points. And let me tell you, just like in Dark Souls, where it says this is where the real Dark Souls begins, Load Runner doesn't start to get incredibly difficult until level 6. And that's as someone who plays it a lot. Like, there are people who'll say the first level is incredibly difficult. But once you get to 6, you need to, like, manipulate ways to, like, cut through full sheets of bricks. Like, full levels of bricks, and make sure you don't trap yourself. And you need to like use ladders to cut down columns of bricks in a way that like you don't even think the game will allow you to do.
Yeah.
Like you need to like learn so much about it. But like we've already gone further than I wanted to on the basic challenge. I wanted to talk about the finals. Because like you said, you collected points throughout this whole event. And I officially know that at the end of the first 2 rounds, I was at 78 points total.
Cool.
The next closest person had 68 points.
So may I ask, do you happen to know what the most amount of points you could have? Is that's 78
It'd be
out of
150.
100? 150. Okay.
Yeah. So it would have been out of 100 at that point. So I had 78
okay.
out of 100.
Okay.
So basically, I rocked 80% completion rate score-wise for this
Nice.
whole challenge. Because
Fantastic.
I finished at 120. Based on, like, because they never posted the final scores, but based on what I had done and the fact that I was still... So, spoilers, I was the top finisher in the Ultimate Gamer Challenge qualifier.
Yeah. Lest you think this this back padding that's been going on for the last hour was all for naught. Devon did actually win.
Yeah. Well, I won that part of it, and that's why we're going to get to the finals. And one of the reasons I did that is on R-Type, I posted up a very high score that did not get beaten until there was 20 minutes left. And then I went to defend that score, did successfully beat the score that was there over mine, adding 20,000 points to what I had gotten the first time through.
Nice.
And then there was a guy behind me, and there was still 5 minutes left. And if you started before the cutoff, you got to finish your game, which is fair, especially in a lot of these games where, like, Ninja Gaiden, you're sitting down for a 30-minute play session to get 20,000, 200,000. Right. Sorry. It's just such a weird number to me.
Yeah, I know. It's your brain can't fathom that was the actual goal. That's what it is.
And that last guy beat my score. Mm-hmm. And the way that the arcade scores were tallied was whoever got the highest score got 10 points. And then it was all percentage based. So
see, the one thing that I take issue with that is I feel almost like you should have got the opportunity to defend your title there. But that's just...
I understand where you're coming from. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
And that's strange, but it's what it is, because then people would just be defending their title though, like the rest of the thing.
No,
it'd be like one of those spelling bees where it's the last 2 kids, and they just keep spelling words, and you're like, we'd like to go home at some point. But like, so that's the thing. So like, if the high score is 150,000, 75,000 points is then worth 5. So, like, you need to still have been really close to that high score, and it can throw off the curve. Grading the score on a curve is also weird. So, like, It's not like one of the things that I wish they had employed for all of the games, which is what someone had said. It's like, I wish everything was being judged like the arcade games. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you do, right? Because you're getting the points there, but you're not getting the points in the ones that have, like, the challenges. Right. Anywho, I finished in first. My sister, Dale, who was there, she finished in 4th. So, all of the training that we did, it actually paid off.
Very nice.
And then we get to the finals. And there were 4 people in the finals. And it started with a relay race, 20 lines in Tetris. As soon as they did that, they switched you over to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, where you had to collect and have simultaneously 100 rings in the first act.
Okay.
And then... the third challenge was to beat the first castle in Super Mario World.
Okay.
So, like, that's a relay, right?
Yeah.
And then, once you complete that, you went up to the main stage where it was a 4-player GoldenEye match in the facility. So, like, and this is the thing that I take a little bit of umbrage with in this is 18 challenges, single-player challenges.
Yeah.
And then the very final one is PvP, multiplayer.
Which is a whole other world. It's just a whole other world of gaming that, like, the rest of the event did not once touch on.
Yeah. And it feels like they did it so that they could have, like, that direct competition in the final, which was on their main stage. Yeah. And it's like, I okay, like, but I am a single player. Right? I am the single player, right? It's like a Jonathan Silverman reboot. because I don't play a lot of multiplayer games because I didn't have a brother or sister until I was 9 years old. And, like, I didn't have, like, friends who lived close enough who wanted to video game with me like that. Like, I played with my mom and my father, but, like, never to the level that you need to. Like, those people who, like, talk about those fun nights playing Mario Party or Mario Kart or even GoldenEye, I never had those.
Yeah. So I will say to your comment though about the idea that the only reason they do this is because, or not the only reason, but one of the big reasons they do it is to have that direct competition feeling. I mean, any 10-year-old kid that watched The Wiz knows that you can get that on a single player. You know what I mean?
The Wizard.
No, not The Wiz.
Different
not the Wiz,
movies.
Different movie. But but I mean, like you can have single player, like you can have a single player experience that still has that competitive edge to it.
And that's what the first 3 games were. Like,
right.
We were all
so,
in a direct head-to-head relay race to hit goals in 3 retro games.
I would understand it if it was like a tiebreaker situation. If like 3 people tied and they just were like, all right, we need to figure out a way to figure out which one of these 3. Then you present the really weird out of left field. You know what I mean? Like as a bonus, as like a side thing that like there's a chance it might not even come up, but if it does, like this is what we'll do to solve it. That feels okay to me. But to make it directly just the final thing just feels like it's so out of left field for what the rest of the competition is.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And that's why I got second place overall in this challenge. And I say that because I had the second highest number of points in GoldenEye when the final kill was scored by the person who walked away as the ultimate gamer from this challenge. And you know what? I'm not really salty about that because, like, I didn't do well at GoldenEye. I excelled in everything else. I was the first person to finish the relay race.
Oh, man.
So it's one of these things where it's like, I still had fun. I'm not going to let one negative thing, and it's not even that negative, right? Like, I still find positives in it.
Yeah.
Like, pull me out of it. But it's just one of those things where it's like, it kind of seems like you changed the game at the end.
Well, it's like going an entire baseball season being undefeated, but then you don't get to win the World Series because you lost the home run derby. It's like, well, I mean, that's not really what I did the rest of the season, but thanks, guys. Yeah, okay.
And also, it's not my team that lost the home run derby.
Right.
It's my league.
Yeah,
the American League. We don't have a lot of power hitters. The National League does.
It's such a weird, flipping of the script on the rest of the competition. Like that just feels so weird. I'm so sorry, man. Here's
the only thing that is that the guy afterward, he comes, he's like, nice job, and he's like, and I gotta mix it up on you, right? Because like it can't just all be single player stuff, otherwise. And I'm like, why are you saying that to me? Like. You say that like you did it specifically, so I
yeah. Was this aimed at me? Wait a minute.
That was a weird way to put it. Like, I don't think you mean it the way it sounded, but like that's how it sounded.
Also, again, I appreciate that thought, but if that's the case, there should have been more multiplayer stuff throughout. Like, there should have been a couple of hints that this was a possibility in the end. You know what I mean?
Told. It was written in the thing that the final thing would be determined via multiplayer. But like. And even that, like, I don't want to get like too just like upset with it. But he said that it was going to be rockets only in the facility. It wasn't rockets only. It was heavy weaponry in the facility. So it was the AK-47, the Klob, the Dostoyev 44, and 1 rocket launcher.
All right. So there's clearly some
blemishes.
There's some blemishes going on with this thing. But overall, though, like
Dale and I had a great time. Even though, I mean, the grand prize was a new complete in-box. I don't know if it was new. NES Action System from 87. So, that would have been cool. As a runner-up, even though I'm second runner-up, I didn't get anything different. I didn't get, a big prize for that. But for being in the top 8 qualifiers of the finalists, we got a free growler of beer from a local brewery and, a little gift set from the convention.
That's cool.
So that was cool, right? And that's not even why I did it. I did it to
Right,
like
right.
test myself in these games.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is like let's step back as far as possible here and look at like what is the point of competitions like this specifically and this idea of retro gaming, right? And do you feel like this was a place where like people were coming together to celebrate this love of this thing, right? Like did they at least succeed there? You know, maybe at the competition level there was some issues, but like how do you feel about things overall in terms of
I think
like
that I
historical
had
value?
more fun with it because I was interacting with people.
Yeah.
Like the girl who was assigned to referee Power Stone
Yeah.
didn't really know Power Stone.
Okay.
So while I was playing, she's like, I don't understand this game. And I'm like, oh, let me give you a brief rundown as I'm also competing, right? Which is fine. I mean, that's what people do on Twitch all the time. I
Right,
have
right.
no problem talking and explaining what I'm doing, right? If I want to stream, it's something that it's a skill I know I need to have.
Right.
So it's something I do it. But then I go to the next seat over was another game. I don't remember what it was. But it was something like not super, like I didn't need to pay attention as much as I had to in Power Stone.
Okay.
It was Super Mario 64. And I was actually just practicing what the challenge was and trying to get better. Because the challenge in that was to beat Koopa the Quick. For 10 points, you had to beat him in less than 26 seconds.
Excellent.
So a woman sat down to do Power Stone, and she's like, how does any of it work? And the referee, even though I just gave her a tutorial and I tried to go slow, is like, I know this jumps and these hit. And I'm like, oh my God, like there's so much more to it. So like I paused the game and I'm like, would you like me to like give you a bit of more explanation on it? So I walked this woman through the game and she's like, oh, okay. And then she like understood it. And that was a moment that I really enjoyed. But like, again, the only people that like really got to watch me play and comment on what I was doing were the referees.
Well, and the thing that kills me, right, is that like there are other people out there like you, man, that have this knowledge. You know, maybe skill and talent aside, well, you know, that's for a whole other day, right? But like in terms of like the knowledge and the love and the respect for this stuff, those people exist. We know that. Clearly, there's an entire organization here. But to have somebody on the floor representing your organization standing next to the game that they are supposed to be judging like somebody's ability to be playing, to not even have a basic understanding of even all of the moves like all of the controls, that's upsetting. Like where is their person that's like, oh well, we've got one person in our group that's just like just centipede all the way, right? I mean, I know I joked about Steve Levy earlier, but one of the best things about that documentary King of Kong is that where when he goes to those competitions, when he goes to these places, and when he's out there in the community like talking to these people, like their knowledge of this stuff and the history of this stuff is so evident, right? And that's what makes those people lovable in ways that like otherwise they wouldn't be, you know, like they are kind of insular and they are kind of rude and they're all kind of brusque and all this stuff, right?
Brash.
But at the no, brusque is a word too, but
brusque is a word, but I thought you were going for brash.
But like this idea that like, but at the end of the day, like this is something that they are passionate about, and that's what seems to be missing from what you're talking about is like, where were the people on the floor that were just as passionate about this stuff as you? Because if the person that is most passionate in the room is a guy that this is only the second time they've ever been to one of these events, and it's really only the first time they've been to this particular event, like you don't have the right people with you yet, right? Like you might have a lot of people that are really interested in getting this thing going, but you need to find the people with the actual passion behind any of it to actually make it mean anything.
Right. And that's sort of like at the end of the day, I feel a little bit empty after it's all done. And it's not because I got second place, but it's that like there will be no history of this. Nothing that I did was recorded except for my score at the end. Like there's no like my Ninja Gaiden thing, I got that 200,000 points. I did it in my first try. But I had two really dumb deaths.
Yeah.
Where like I just miscalculated the RNG of a situation. And my bounce back knocked me into a pit. So like I'm sitting there at, 80,000 points and I'm like, if I die again, I need to start from the beginning. So like to see me get there and then triumph over that adversity, nobody gets to see that.
Oh man, and see that's that hurts a little. Again, bringing me back to like who is the audience for this type of competition? Because at the end of the day, if it's never going to mean anything, because at the end, like I'm surprised that they didn't have like even certificates available for the people that did really well in the individual games. Anything like that? Like any recognition for the people that were doing really well outside of just winning the entire thing?
No,
Like.
no.
And
You're
it's
right.
not
Like
that I
that'd be
feel like
good. Like
people need recognition, but like what is the value in this competition if not for recognizing people at this level? Like,
yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong in any way, shape, or form. And this is the stuff that like hits me. Like no one gets to. There's a bag in Super Ghouls and Ghosts that is a jerk. The bag is just a jerk. It is above a thing that shoots out skulls, and there is a way to get it because I sat and I calculated and figured it out. So me getting it is nothing, right? Then the person who was watching me, like, I had to tell her times when I collected bags because they had like little clickers like you have when you're like counting people in a room or something
yeah,
to
right.
count it. I'm like, I just got a bag, but I got it before it spawned on screen. And she's like, oh, okay. And like, she wasn't watching. And I'm like, oh, okay. So like, I collect that bag. It's like almost like a foregone conclusion that I'm going to be collecting these bags and it's going to be a thing. But Dale, she tells me a story about when she's doing it because they had 2 stations set up, right? Which is one level of professionalism I did respect. Because if they had gotten a huge number of people and they only had 1 station of each game going, there'd be a chance that everybody couldn't place a score.
Right.
Let alone try again if they have like one bad thing happen to them.
Yeah.
But Dale was doing it at a separate station, and she gets to that bag, and because she'd been practicing with me, I told her, this is the exact time you need to start this jump if you want to collect that money bag. And she learned it, and she performed it there, and the girl, when the bag got on screen, said, how are you supposed to get that? And then Dale just got it, and she's like, I'm actually impressed. Because like I thought that was just like a jerk location. There's no way to do it, and you just made it look easy. And then Dale continued, and she's like, yeah, I've never seen this part of the level. I've never seen this part of the game. And it's like, you're judging the game.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
it brings me back to like what exactly is the point of what they're trying to do? Because, and this even feeds into what we were talking about earlier with like the exploits and all this stuff and what the different specific challenges were. Is like what is the point of what you're trying to do here? Are you trying to preserve some historic way that people did this stuff? In that case, you shouldn't be allowing certain things that are happening, like the challenges that make no sense. But on the other hand, if it really is just about like a skill competition, then where is the recognition for that skill when it shows up? It sounds like they're not even recognizing the skill when it's there. So if it's not for the skill and it's not for the historical value, then what is the point of this entire thing?
Well, let me tell you one thing, and this is a side thing, and then we'll transition to ending this episode. Thank you so much if you've listened this far. We really do appreciate you here at the Say Report. And the only reason we got so esoteric with this is because Sejohn has had to hear me complain about this competition for 2 weeks as I practiced it. So he wanted like some sort of payoff, and I think that we've delivered that in spades. But before they posted the final scores after the second day, I was talking with one of the referees at the after party, and they're like, oh yeah, scores are in. And I'm like, oh, how'd they do? And like, well, you're still number 1. You have 70 points. And then they say to another person I was there with, and you're at 68. And I'm sitting there like, there's no way I'm at 70 points. Right? Like, that's just like,
Yeah.
maybe like they didn't count. Like maybe they went with my first one. They didn't tabulate like my second score when I went back and got a higher thing there. But I'm like, I can't let this bother me. Like, but I'm sitting there like, but if I go in tomorrow and I see that I'm only at 70, I'm going to ask, can I know what my scores were?
Right.
Because like you said, there's no recognition then. Like if they had tabulated wrong and lost me 8 points,
Right.
like that would feel, I don't know, it'd feel like I did it for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to be seen as more than just a group of people who just love old video games, if they want to become a respectable like group that actually has like a value, whether that is historical or skill based or something. Like they need to figure out what this competition is going to be in the future, because right now it sounds like it's kind of just a little column A, a little column B, and not enough of either. So like
Well, I think the big issue is you keep referring to it as an organization.
yeah.
Really what it is it's one guy and a bunch of his friends and relatives that he gets to volunteer
Yeah.
to be part of it. And I'm fine with that, but it's like passion is something that I am expecting on display in something like that. And when I don't see it, it's like, well then why am I being passionate about it if the people who are like actually doing this in some sort of like semi-professional manner aren't showing that same passion.
Yeah, and I can respect the idea that this is just a group of people just, doing it for the vine or whatever, but like I just have to say that, like, if that's the case, then why is he bothering to put himself out there so much? Why is he bothering to put the organization out there in this fashion, if not to become like an important thing? You know what I mean? Like again, I ask the question, then what is the point exactly of this? If it is not to be that, if it is not to be that larger competition, if it is just for this love of celebrating it, then they've got to show a little bit more love, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, man. It sounds like you had a good time though, and that's
I had a great time. And I do want to specifically say any gripes that I've sort of brought up, I mean, they're minor stuff that just because I've had time to think about it, but none of that should reflect poorly on Retro World Expo. If you are looking for a retro video game convention to go to, the prices are affordable. It's not at the level of PAX East, so you're not going to like be overwhelmed by the humanity. And it's something that I would definitely recommend. Even despite Siege and Soul, you can't go out after 9 o'clock thing. I mean, I don't know any of that. I walked to a barbecue place and had a great barbecue pizza with barbecued meatballs and barbecue bacon on it. That was stellar. And then they had little cinnamon sugar donuts that they made in house.
Yeah, well, I hope I'm glad to hear that like Hartford's getting their act together, because I kid you not, like one of the big things about going to the Hart School was like they actually felt the need to, in the orientation, give out the crime rate numbers so that people could decide then and there if they felt okay going to that school. Like it was part of the actual like meeting with them, showing us around campus to be like, just so you know, we will take care of you and make sure that you can get to and from the supermarket without having to step foot on the dirty streets. It's like, oh, okay.
We have a helicopter budget. That's why tuition is $200,000.
Yeah. Like, so like I do hope that they're getting their act. Like,
yeah. And check it out, and even check out Frag if you're in the area. If you're in the Southern Connecticut area, check it out. Southern Western Connecticut. I mean, they're a good thing, and they have good ideas. And if you like retro gaming, it's definitely something worth checking out. But you've listened to us talk long enough. So if you'd like to address anything that I've said here today, you can find me on Twitter at Devon D. Decker.
And you can find me at Siege versus the World and bitch and moan to me about how I wasn't there, so I don't get to say anything.
Oh, man. I always like, because you were supposed to be there, I wonder how it would have affected things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I probably would have still had to wake up at 5 o'clock and learn Ninja Gaiden, regardless.
I'll tell you this, the number and placements would not have changed for anybody. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, you beautiful Mishigash, you. Will, why don't you hit start on Player 3, buddy?
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.